Honey, I kind of shrank our Kia EV9, or that's one way you could describe it when you take a closer look at the EV5. Kia's version of the Sportage, but now fully electric. And with that, hey and welcome to this new video here with Jonas, and welcome to the static premiere of the Kia EV5. A few weeks before the IAA, I can already show you the vehicle here in the first impression. You'll see the car at the IAA and we can as well. More info is in the video description. I've highlighted it in the video and the car is definitely a standout. You're probably already familiar with Kia Sportage, a compact mid-range SUV, and now it's also launching as a fully electric vehicle model. Visually, it looks very similar to the Kia EV9, which isn't a bad thing at all. While we already said with the EV3, hey, it's comparable to the EV9 in terms of shape and design language, this one does it even better. And for all those who have said so far, hey, a 5-meter plus SUV with 7 seats might be too big for me, I'd like something more compact. Here it is, and we're going to take a look at it together today. If you don't want to miss out on this in the future, make sure to leave a subscription below the video. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps me a ton in my work. And there's also this new hype feature where you can swipe left in the comments or something. It helps me as a smaller creator here on YouTube to make the videos even more visible and engaging for the audience. So feel free to support me below the video. The EV5 will be available starting from the end of the year, and it will first come in the GT line version with the large battery option included. That means 81.4 kilowatt hours of usable battery capacity is actually reasonable in a segment where you have to compare it with the VW ID.4 with the very popular Skoda Enyaq. Or of course, you also have to mention the Tesla Model Y, even though that one is a bit longer. With a width of 1.86 meters without mirrors, it's actually quite substantial. Pretty substantial. But I think the front, especially with this star map design by Kia, really makes a statement. It's kind of a mix between the new EV6, especially with how it pulls forward here, and of course the EV9. Feel free to share your thoughts on the design in the comments section. I think it looks really good. With the EV6, I had a bit of a hard time, but I think it really has a lot going for it. And then there's also this Kia logo here, featuring the brushed metal section at the bottom. The GT line's dimensions deliver a stately and commanding presence, featuring a high-rising hood that isn't the most aerodynamic in its overall design. The ranges of 530 kilometers with 18-inch wheels or 505 kilometers with 19-inch wheels are not exactly groundbreaking either, considering you're trying to get that out of an 80 kilowatt-hour battery. But it does offer a lot of space. You can really see that from the side, how long the roofline stretches, how much room has been created, and how little the car actually seems to occupy in comparison. Narrows. Yeah, they've added flares and some design elements, but the car still looks quite boxy in its overall shape and appearance overall. With a height of 1.68 meters and a length of just 4.61 meters, it's definitely not the largest vehicle you'll encounter on the road. But it appears significantly more impressive than the dimensions on paper would actually suggest. And also the wheelbase of 2.75. You've seen larger ones in this class before. That naturally results in slightly longer overhangs, but overall, it still maintains a quite sturdy and robust design overall. I have an issue with the top speed. I just took a look at the datasheet, and obviously I can't drive it today. It says that it's limited to 165 kilometers per hour. I have to say, I would wish for a bit more than that. There are certainly other cars in the compact segment that are allowed to go a lot faster these days. On the MEB platform, it was previously limited to 160 as well. Now, with the new rear motor, they are allowed to go up to 180 kilometers per hour at least. But 165 is kind of like a middle ground where you get the feeling that they're not entirely sure how the range and consumption will develop. Would you allow more there? It's definitely a compromise, but personally, I'd wish for a bit more. What makes it possible is a 160 kilowatt front-wheel drive with 295 Newton meters, which accelerates from 0 to 100 in 8.4 seconds. Currently, it's only available as a front-wheel drive. We know this from the EV3 and also the EV4, because yes, it also sits on the identical platform. That means in reverse, it's also a 400-volt system and not like, for example, the EV6, which in the nomenclature is just one number higher, the 800-volt system. Those are some compromises to make. I'd also wish it gets all-wheel drive soon, because with the size, the vehicle shape, and the appearance, it would only make sense. Let's see how that develops. At the start, there's only the big battery, while the others will come with the smaller ones a bit later on. So there's still room below, maybe even above then, for the all-wheel drive. It's charged then platform typically on the front right, and here the charging flap opens electrically now, so a small indication pointing more towards the premium or higher end segment. It features 150 kilowatt DC fast charging and 11 kilowatt AC as standard, positioning it alongside the EV6 or EV9. At the fast charging station, you go from 10 to 80% in 30 minutes according to the specs, and you can trust that because we were able to test it in the EV3 as well. If you're wondering why some elements here look a bit shiny or just not fully in place, it's because this is a pre-production vehicle. Just keep that in mind for the interior later. Not everything comes like this. Many materials will still change, and that's why I'm not going into it. Even if a charging flap here doesn't fit perfectly now or is perhaps a bit louder when opening, keep in mind this is the pre-production vehicle. Given and since we're here, let's talk briefly about the headlights because the EB3 doesn't have matrix or features to block out traffic. The 4 Series has it, and so does the 5 Series, and that's very important to me. I know quite a few people who seriously debated whether to choose the 3 Series or the 4 Series because of this lighting issue. When we get to the rear, we'll talk a bit about the design, and I'll try to share as much as I can with you since the A4 sheet I received today contains all the data and details on it that's available as of today. Honestly, there's not too much on it yet, just some basic details. Design-wise, we can still talk about it, and here we have a very similar lighting design, almost identical to before. It almost extends to the middle, then ends neatly again at the rear view camera with the brushed metal and a very harmonious overall design. I also think it's cool it doesn't go up here as a feature compared to the larger EV9. And since I just saw the camera, an important point, all the assistance systems that you know from the platform will also be here. That means the highway drive is version 2.0 and the park is version 2.0, where you can also let the car park and unpark using the key. All these features will also be available in the vehicle. Of course, much of it is optional, but that's worth noting as it's provided here on the platform. And accordingly, it's also available in the largest of the 400-volt models. That's how I'll refer to it for now. I can't say too much about the prices at the moment. I did a bit of quick research online. Many people say it's likely to start around 40,000 euros at the entry level, but I can hardly imagine that because even the EV4, where the prices have now been announced, starts at just under 38,000 euros, and it's bigger, more spacious, and simply positioned higher. And then I can't imagine it starting under 40,000 euros, and definitely not this one here, because with the GT line and the large battery, it's more likely to be closer to 50, if not even beyond that. Now, let's move on to the trunk, which is most likely the standout feature of this vehicle for the majority of people. Because you want it to have space and create space, for one, it comes with a roll-up cover that helps keep things organized. It's positioned quite far back. We'll take a look at the second row shortly to see why. And it comes with 566 liters of trunk space and a double load floor. That means I can completely lower this part right here, and it fits perfectly flush with the rest. So you don't have some kind of sloping surface at the back. No, you can use the entire space there. And even underneath, there was more than enough space to comfortably fit a charging cable or even a mobile charging solution like the Enyaq. So I'm absolutely sure about that because even now this massive tire mobility kit is already stored in there. And that's really practical. 566 liters in this compartment are okay, which is decent enough. There are some other competitors who manage to offer a bit more space though. I think the width here really speaks for itself, and a cool detail, there are these tie-down point brackets that you can position in various places. That means you can either set them further forward or further back depending on where you want to secure something in the vehicle. And there are also these small tabs like loops that you can attach something else to as well. Or you can use it directly to hang shopping bags on. That's always pretty cool, because you actually benefit from it in everyday life, just like you do from the ability to store the blind conveniently inside. So if I raise the loading floor one level higher, I can still stash the blind in there and load it up all the way to the top without any issues. And another important point, there's the power socket back here. I always find it a bit inconveniently positioned when it's at the rear of the vehicle. I know that from our EV9 ... For example, when I sit in the back because my son is on the right side and Sarah takes over driving up front, then I often work when the little one is sleeping and then I'll actually have power up front. That's available, for example, in the EV6, where the socket is in the front of the passenger compartment. And having it in the back isn't quite as practical because you can't just plug in the MacBook while driving. And I know a lot of people mention it, but up front there is power delivery. Yes, but some devices just need more than 60 watts, and then it's really nice to have the socket at the front. Sure, the distances are short, so plugging in here and running the cable forward works fine. It only works, of course, if the trunk isn't completely full. And that's a good point too, because the vehicle also has vehicle to load, vehicle to home, vehicle to X, everything that goes with it. And there's an outlet in the back. Before I forget, the towing capacity is 1.2 tons. And the doors can be opened by using an electrically operated door handle. Now I need to get inside here to show you the frunk, because unfortunately, the mechanism down here in the footwell, and it seems that's actually only reserved for the largest model, allowing it to be opened electrically. Here's an extra locking feature installed, and then you've got a frunk located at the front. A very, very important point for me at least, despite the front motor, some manufacturers can take a hint from this. You get 44 liters of trunk space, so a front trunk, and that's just enough then to, for example, fit in the vehicle to load adapter, but also the charging cable. And on the mobile charging solution, then you actually don't need any extra space in the trunk. You can pack it completely full, and when you're on the go, you can still access the charging cable. And before you write, yes, but on long distance trips, I don't need the cable. Yes, because there are always situations where you stop somewhere in the city while you're on the road and want to quickly charge the car, or you arrive at the hotel and need to plug it in first before unloading something, or simply because you have bike racks on the back, pulls up and just thinks, now I have to deal with the trunk again. For all these scenarios, the frunk is an advantage, and not least for the fact that you don't bring the dirt from the charging cable into the car somewhere. Now onto the interior, and I have to correct myself here because it's not 60 watts inside, but 100 watts. It's clearly marked here, power delivery has been upgraded, which is really great because the socket argument becomes much less relevant now. The interior is a blend of what we've known so far. It's a bit like the EV9, but there's also a lot of the EV4 in here. I find it very, very practical and good. We have a center console that actually offers a lot of storage options, with 2 cup holders, an inductive charging pad for the smartphone right next to it, and also space here to discreetly store things. While there's a lot of space down here, many people don't like having everything in the car always on display. Just like in many other Kia models, you have the shortcuts up front here as well as a fingerprint sensor. And I'll turn the car on and immediately off again. And then you notice there are new sounds. I can't fully test it here while the car is parked, but Kia states the EV5 is the first model to introduce new warning and info sounds specifically designed to be less irritating and more pleasant. I think some people out there will be happy about that. I'll still turn it on again and we'll briefly talk about the displays here. We have a new layout, which I think looks quite good now visually, but the content is the same, meaning we still have, for example, only basic information and displays in the center of the driver's info screen. That includes, for instance, the fuel consumption or specific details about the current operating system. But there's no route planning or even a navigation map included in this setup. Optionally, there's a head-up display that shows all the essential information, and we have the familiar multimedia screen here with a new theme design. So now everything here is kept a bit green and feels a bit more modern than in the previous models. And beside it or in between, there's the climate control panel. But that's nothing new, and the software is identical to the EV3 and EV4. And it's even better than the EV9 because in here there's both entertainment, meaning there are games, as well as streaming. I have a YouTube app right here and can watch my latest YouTube videos directly on this. And why is it still not available in the EV9? It was promised at some point, and I'm staying persistent on this, always pointing it out. I want this to come to the larger models as well because, especially with those, you're on long trips and you're usually traveling with the family, so it just makes sense to be able to watch something during the charging break. Down here, there are a few more shortcuts and there are these classic features where you can click home or go directly to the navigation. The navigation includes route planning with charging stops, which you know from the other videos. And just briefly about the seats, there's optional seat massage, and I think ventilation and heating are great additions. Of course, there's also a memory function, and in the GT line, the seats. Then also electric. The ambient lighting is completely new. Here, in this line, it strongly reminds you of Audi, Tesla, and some others out there, as it can serve a functional purpose alongside its design. It's a really nice and practical touch. For example, it's said that when the blind spot warning is active, the ambient lighting is also utilized, for instance. I'm genuinely curious to see what extra features will be included. Beyond that, the interior is really nicely designed. There are a few small gimmicks like a cup holder here, and then there's also this illuminated unit over there. For the gear selection topic, the steering wheel is familiar from the EV6 and the seats are really quite comfortable. The only thing is, I really would have liked the mesh headrest. Now, let's move to the second row and the ambient lighting continues back there. It wasn't there before in the EV3 and the EV4, but now it's here. Even though it's just a small line and a door pocket light, it naturally makes the interior feel more premium and especially brighter at night. Even though this GT line interior is already quite dark, but you can see I look small in the car, and that's not least because there's an extreme amount of headroom here, and I'll admit I'm also currently in more of a reclined position. And here you have to assist a bit with the foresight of the rear seat. You can actually adjust very, very many angles, and as you can see, the entire seat base moves a bit along with it, because it's quite dynamic in itself. Let's take a closer look right away at what's causing that. I think it's still too steep, but I would probably drive like this here, so a bit more space for the trunk. It's still comfortable, not least because, for instance, there's a center armrest and it includes a ski sack pass-through. We also don't have too many cars anymore, so just wanted to mention that at this point. Additionally, the outer seats have ISOFIX. Unfortunately, the passenger seat doesn't, and it also doesn't have that adjustment via the backrest. So you can actually only adjust the passenger seat using the passenger seat adjustment. I have tons of space in here. I'm genuinely surprised by how much room there actually is, because when you see how much room there still is at the knees, the driver's seat is adjusted for me being 5 feet 8 inches tall. Even with someone 6.5 feet tall sitting in the front seat, I'd still have plenty of room, plenty of space back here, and that airiness up top genuinely enhances it even more so effectively. Optionally, there's the glass panoramic roof here, which can also be opened and closed with a roller blind. Many people find that important. Unfortunately, there are no blinds for the side windows. Instead, there are grab handles at every seat except for the driver's, and the interior features this white and black mix, which I personally think is actually really well executed. The 3-zone climate is controlled here via a small display with seat heating on the outer seats, and as usual, now I'm giving Lua a hard time at this point, you know how it is. The middle seat test. It's already quite firm, but since the seat itself is very flat, I think you can manage sitting here for a little while without too much discomfort. I wouldn't want to drive long distances, I'll be honest, but it's definitely good enough for what it is. So you can definitely tell the car is narrower than an EV9, that has to be said, but it's still relatively comfortable to drive around. And then there's the point about the rear seat bench, because you might think it's on rails. But it's not. It's simply a feature that allows you to fold the seat completely flat to 0 degrees. You fold it down just once, and with the trunk's load floor raised upwards, you'll achieve a perfectly even and level surface. And that's really awesome, not just for camping trips with an electric car, but also when you need to transport something big or bulky. It's super practical. That back step is often a problem, but here you don't have to deal with that issue in any way whatsoever. Kia reached 23% of their total vehicle sales with fully electric models in the first half of 2025. The normal market average is at 18%, and I think that especially the EV5, but also the EV4, which will soon go on sale, will contribute to that even more. I know the topic is tricky with the 400 versus 800 volts, simply because at Kia, people were used to the 800 volt models until now. The EV6 launched first, the EV9 came next, then the EV3 arrived with 400 volts, and everyone wondered, why still go for a Kia? When this 800 volt USP, which in the past was a key factor for many purchasing decisions, disappeared. I believe though that with a charging time under 30 minutes for this large battery and especially the generous space in the design, the EV5 can truly stand out. But I'm really curious now about your feedback on this in the comments. Would you prefer this one an ID4, Enyaq or Model Y? Or do you have a completely different alternative in mind? And what price do you think this one will eventually end up having? Feel free to write that down below. Otherwise, I'll show you up here my last test of the Kia EV4, and down below is my 1-year review of the Kia EV9.